guess I'm Sara Parkinson, and I'm the owner of Freckle Digital. And it's been going, I'm going to say, I actually posted the other day that my first ever client is still with us.
Wow.
And they've been with us for like 4 years. So even though like Freckle Digital is a lot different to what it was when it was just like me, my laptop, and a whole lot of like stress and anxiety and 2 clients and no job. So it's come a long way since then. And we've now got like 6 team members, 30, 40 clients. But we've still managed to retain those, 4 or 5 that we started with, which fills my heart.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible.
We've actually grown with them as well, which has been, fantastic. I think those partnerships are just so special. But it kind of just started out of, I did my first ever internship at Dish like 10 years ago.
Oh, cool. Yep.
As a social media coordinator, right when like it was Facebook was the thing. Like I don't even think like Instagram was a thing then.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. So I was like
funny to think that, isn't it? Was it ever not a thing?
Yeah. And then ended up in retail, mainly because it paid better at the time. And then I was able to make the jump from retail to a PR agency. And the only reason because my degree was in geography and political science. It has nothing with marketing at all. And the only reason they hired me was because as a junior, was because I was a manager of a store and could show that I could manage my own time. And that's literally all they cared about. They just didn't want to have to, manage someone. So that's kind of when I got my first break in the industry. And then I worked for them for about 2 years. And then another agency for another 2 years, went in-house for a very fun hospitality brand. And then from there, they were actually really supportive of me, like doing my own thing. So they actually let me go part-time.
Cool.
While starting Freckle.
Yeah.
And then they actually are still kind of a client too, which is really nice as well. Wow. And then started Freckle with 2 or 3 clients, mainly developed from contacts or friends that I knew that I'd picked up working in, communications along the way. And then I guess, of course, there's like winners and losers out of COVID, right?
Yeah.
And as I was developing a team, COVID hit, digital exploded. And I think, not to discredit like the effort I've put in at all, but I think a large part of what happened there helped Freckle grow a lot quicker than what, it normally would have, and just because online exploded.
Yeah. And do you think like the ability to kind of land clients, if you will, over Zoom changed dramatically as well? Like you no longer had to be in Sydney or Melbourne or, LA or New York. You don't have to be anywhere now. You can kind of have these conversations via Zoom or whatever, and actually just get things done.
Yeah, I think that's helped dramatically. And I think not only from a cost, like a time efficiency, running an agency full stop, right? Because I remember going to like all these lengthy, like, sorry, someone's just going to come in, but all these like lengthy, meetings all around the city, different locations, even Gold Coast. And all that's now has been completely like removed. And now you can like, have back-to-back meetings in like a 2 or 3 hour period, and then you've got the rest of the day to get your work done.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been just a great efficiency overall. And I'd say like probably the hardest thing with COVID and everyone getting online was setting expectations. And I think everybody wanted to jump online because they were like panicking, and then they expected it to run just as well as their, physical retail store. And I think when you don't have a lot of education around digital and how it works, you think it's like an immediate automatic thing,
like a silver bullet to everything.
Like, like completely. It's still, like building the foundations of a house, right? if you don't spend the time getting the right people in to do the right bits, like you don't get the finished product or the finished outcome. So I think over COVID, like I felt like I was constantly, you know, trying to set realistic expectations with people of what to expect. Especially when people were like struggling for cash flow and, you know, felt like that was the biggest challenge over that period. But we had a good, you know, set of, you know, great team that helped people, you know, pull, you know, on like Pilates studios off from offline straight online by setting up an online studio so she could still keep her memberships going. So there was a lot of great things that came out of it, but it was, you know, a very up and down challenging.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like, well, there's kind of two things there. Like, it sounds like you actually helped people go digital. But even just thinking about digital as a marketing strategy, like it is completely different than, you know, if you've got a physical space. And I think that's the funny thing about, I think it's a funny thing about any marketing strategy. I kind of feel like people just go, well, I have a great product. If I just do this, millions of dollars will come in the door. But, you know, it really is, you know, you've really got to take a step back and understand who your customers are, where they are online, and, you know, test, optimize different strategies. And I don't think people quite understand like how much goes into a marketing strategy.
Yeah. And the volume of content that you need, right? And it's like quite often with our brands, what sells in store does not sell online, and vice versa. And it's usually, you know, those like products that look good online. You know, it's like, for instance, a silver shoe will not move in store, but online it will, because it's got like an effect on it and it just looks better.
Yeah.
So it's super, I find it fascinating seeing what, you know, people are drawn to online versus in store. And it's often, you know, very, very different. Yeah.
So you mentioned, you know, the difference between when you first started, you know, like laptop in hand, couple of clients, stress. How has that changed today? Like, what role do you, and you've got a team now as well, so what kind of role do you play in the business?
Yeah, well, it's still stress. I'm not gonna lie.
Excellent.
No, it's and that's what like I mentioned before, that's what I'm working on this year is, you know, getting a little bit more balance. But it's changed from, you know, controlling anything and everything that goes out, and you having to know, almost like upskill yourself very quick, right? Because I felt like when I started out, the way you grew a business was word of mouth, especially in the service industry. And I guess that does translate to online with third-party reviews and testimonials, you know, going back to the influencers. Like it's kind of a marketing tactic that works when you're starting out.
Yeah.
And so I felt like you had to kind of over-deliver for clients, you know, to get those great recommendations, and then grew on to other work down the line.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, you know, at that time I was doing anything and everything. And then now what I've kind of like realized is, A, you got to let go of things. You can't have control over everything. And B, you need people in your team that are better at things than you are. And you've got to really like be honest with yourself about what you're not good at. Like, and this pains me to say as a marketing specialist, but my grammar is not the best thing in the world, you know. So the first person I hired was a copywriter.
Amazing.
You know, and then because then she proofs my work, I don't proof hers, right? And then and then after that it's like graphic designer, because that's a required skill set for content that I don't have. After that, paid ad specialist. After that, motion graphic. So what I find is like my role is to understand from experience how to push a business forward. When it comes to actually implementing that, I've got specialists in each area that I physically can't do to help me like get results for that client. So I think it's kind of it's still very much on the tools. I don't think you can say even 4 years in that you can totally like, you know, sit back with a margarita.
I try. I really try just, you know, incorporate it into my
you are, but I think it just shifts, and you got to let go, and then you also got to start looking out for your team and like what they want.
Yeah.
Make sure their needs are met, and then, you know, basic, you know, functionalities of how to run a business, which nobody tells you when you get into these things because you're good at your skill.
Yeah.
And then it grows, and then you're like, I have no idea how to run a business. And then you almost find yourself scrambling to try and, you know, build people around you that also know how to run a business.
Yes.
And so it's changed a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So how do you stay motivated then and inspired to keep growing the business?
I think like at the moment I'm like so super proud of all the people at Freckle. Like sometimes I don't know how or why they work at Freckle.
Because you're amazing.
No. They love what they do so much, and they're such smart, intelligent people at what they do. Like they kind of motivate me, you know, to drive results for clients and make sure that they're progressing in their careers and like they're in a positive, supportive environment. Like we're pretty much a team of mostly females.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I've been in environments where that hasn't always been the case. So I'm like, I'm super passionate about making sure, you know, their needs are being met as well as the business needs. Probably put mine last, which is not always the best thing, but you know, that's just what happens. And so they keep me motivated. And then the clients that we serve, like they're very much, I think you attract what you put out when it comes to clients.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I've attracted a lot of businesses that I'm interested, but obviously I think that's just probably half the course, right? So probably the team, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned obviously them being majority female as well. And I think, you know, maybe in marketing it's a little bit different because marketing can be more female dominated, I think.
Yeah.
But what have you found, I mean, being a female in business, have you found that has been an advantage, a disadvantage, or neutral? You don't think it has an impact? What's your kind of vibe on women in biz?
I think, and I actually think like right now in this environment, it's never been a better time to be a woman in business. Like there is, it's not perfect and, you know, not everything is equal and there's always improvements to make. And, you know, I think they will happen incrementally over time. And I think from the, you know, the men that like I work with on a colleague perspective, like other men business owners, like even my partner, like as men, they've never been more supportive of like, you know, what I'm doing and the girls at Freckle. So from my perspective, I don't think it's ever been a better time to be a woman in business. And that's kind of really, you know, come from people before you that, you know, have chosen to pave the way for other people. So you kind of got to look forward, and then as you're looking forward, make sure like that the team behind you and, you know, the women that work under you are also empowered, you know, to lead lives that they want. And, you know, we're making sure, you know, everyone has financial planning advice at Freckle, you know, and we give a percentage of profits to like the Star Foundation, you know, that educate other women. So I think it's a great time. Don't take advantage of it and make sure, you know, you can pass it down the line, but also embrace it. If there's grants out there for you, go get them, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's a pretty great time, I reckon. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I reflect on my own journey and, you know, starting out 10 years ago, there was not a lot around, like that just wasn't talked about as women in business. But now there's, grants, there's dedicated programs, there's other female founders just to look up to reach out to.
Yeah.
So the landscape, I think, has changed so much over the last, even the last 5 years. I think it's just gone,
I reckon.
Crazy. Yeah.
Like, do you remember celebrating International Women's Day?
No.
Like, I don't feel like I was like, when did we start?
When did we start doing that? Yeah. Because I was
quite recent.
Totally, because I was in corporate for a decade before I started Scrunch, and I don't remember ever going to an International Women's Day event. And that's what you typically see now. You see corporate sponsor the tables and pieces, but I don't remember ever doing anything like that.
No, and it's kind of like exploded now a little bit.
Oh yeah, see like how many International Women's Day events were there?
You go to. I think we ended up just doing our own.
Yeah, same.
We were just overwhelmed by the events.
Yeah.
We were like, let's just go do yoga and get breakfast.
Perfect. Well, there was a lot of controversy this year. There was lots of women who were like, actually, International Women's Day, I'm taking off because every day should be International Women's Day and it's my day to
that does
look after me.
Yeah. But no, I think it's overall, I think it's the best time it's ever been. That's what I'll say.
I agree. I mean, and that with just the best time to start a business, no matter what gender you are, from a technology point of view. Yeah. I think you can literally, absolutely. Like you could literally like have an idea and start and build your own website in an afternoon.
Yeah.
And, start selling something. I think that, and it is interesting. People always say that, like, how do I get started? And I'm always like, the thing is, there is no barrier. Like you can just literally make something up and try and sell it to somebody in a day and start testing whether people would be interested in what you have to offer. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Technology, awareness, like all comes together, and it's, if you're going to get started, like get started now. Because I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And more supportive. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna save this one to the end, but then since we're on the topic, what if somebody is hesitating who's watching this video in terms of starting their own business, or maybe even they've got their own business kind of early in the journey and they're kind of struggling a bit, like what would be your tip for, a woman that's kind of like in the throes of deciding whether they should start a business or keep going with a business?
I think the first thing like that helped me jump right was I want to start a business, but I also need a little bit of steady cash flow, right? Yeah. So whether you need to get a part-time job to supplement that, even if it's like working in a retail store, I don't think there is any kind of job that is like not good enough for anyone. So I know when I started, I was just, I was working just part-time to kind of cover the other clients before you can take that leap. So I think that's a good strategy to make a jump.
Yep.
And then feel like, you still financially can cover all your bills. And then the other tip would be just to be flexible and understand that you might have this idea or you might have this product or this service, but you actually find out that this is actually what people need. So just understanding you might need to upskill in a certain area very quickly.
Yeah.
And kind of learn on the go, and in order to make it work long term, because quite often you start and you kind of know what people want. You're not really sure, so you go out there and get it. And I mean, especially in marketing, change is so quick. I think being flexible is just like a standard for even anyone in marketing, but just being flexible. Most businesses that we help from the ground up, they do have to kind of like roll with a few punches and be flexible with the course that they take.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's just actually great business advice. Like, it's funny when COVID hit, everyone was kind of like, oh my God, this is great. And look, yes, it was absolutely like earth shattering for some people, but I'm also like, you know what, since I've been in business, there's been some kind of something every few months that you're like, oh my God, what is this thing that I need to deal with, so it was like I kind of just went, oh well, it's just one more challenge that we need to figure out, no,
I agree. I think, and it's like your challenges just change over time. They don't like, it's almost getting used to being a little bit uncomfortable. I want to say 99%, but that's really negative. So I'm just going to go.
No, I would agree with you. No, I would absolutely agree with you. You should just feel uncomfortable all the time.
No, it's not quite like that. And then, as you grow and you get people on board, then, you're trying to learn how to manage people again.
Yeah.
There's no one taught me how to manage people really. Or no one taught me how to do my taxes and my BAS.
Yeah.
Or, my accountant, thank God, like he's good because I don't actually know what he does.
Yeah.
But you know what? I haven't missed any deadlines and I pay my bills on time. So, maybe also like letting go a bit is a big one.
Well, I just love what you said earlier around understanding what you are good at and not so good at. and letting go. And I think that you're right. Like, you don't want to know what an accountant does. I mean, yes, you absolutely want to be financially literate and you want to be able to read your business financial statements, but you know, and yes, in the very beginning, you're probably doing your own bookkeeping to kind of save a little bit, but getting the experts in are, I think, what can like make or break businesses.
Yeah, and I think there's always a big misconception around, you know, driving more revenue, getting more clients, you know, growing, getting more people, getting more staff. It doesn't actually make more profit. So it's actually figuring out what money or what like finances do you need to sustain your life, and what is the best way to get there so that you've got that net profit and you're not focusing on more and more turnover, because it sometimes can just be more stress.
And then I love that you're saying this, because I feel like the thing that's been glorified is more staff and big offices and all this stuff. And I think that people are posting about this in different places, like, oh my God, look how much we've grown. But there's a lot of businesses that aren't that profitable. And it's kind of like, that is just a recipe for a lot of stress. Yeah.
So like some of the most like profitable businesses are actually quite small.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of just understanding like, and there's like getting a little bit out of the rat race and like the hype and being like, what do I actually want and why am I doing this? Like, what do I need to bring in, you know, to make a living, a lifestyle that I want? And then, you know, if that means just 2 people, you and like 6 high paying clients, then just keep doing that, you know, like there's no need to get like 20 staff and, you know, a big premises in the middle of the city with a river view. Unless those are things that you value, you know, then if those are things you value, then you go after that kind of thing. And
is that a process that you went through? Did you sit down and kind of go, right, what do I want my life and my business to look like?
It kind of, I think, and I wouldn't recommend this to people, I think I kind of hit like ceiling, like I was heading for burnout, like, and I think it was about October, November last year, you know, Black Friday sales, like pressure for, you know, this is when most e-commerce businesses make like 50-60% of their annual revenue. Like pressure is an all-time high, all these new clients onboarding, and I was just like, why am I doing this?
What have I done?
So I think after that I did seek some advice from, you know, financial planners and friends and other business owners, and I think getting as much advice as you can from people that have been there and done it and listening to it and taking bits that you want. You don't have to take it all because everyone's situation is different, and then just kind of like taking that in and reflecting. I think, you know, that 9 weeks I took off going back home to the UK, obviously was still working most days, but I think sometimes taking yourself out of the business for a couple of weeks and just sitting down and thinking like, what is the purpose of this and why am I doing this? It kind of helps you reset and think, okay, well, where am I trying to get to? And like, is this helping me or is this actually hindering me? Because I think if I kept going like I was going, you know, Freckle could have just fallen over, because like, you know, I probably would have been in a heap on the floor. So I think it's like, you know, just being honest about those things and being like, this isn't quite right, and then just seeking advice to try and figure out, you know, how to fix that.
And I think it's like, it's okay if it's different, like if it changes, you know. I think sometimes we get started and we have this grand plan or this vision for how we want things to be, and it doesn't always work out like that. And also I think sometimes we go, oh my God, I want the 100-person team. I want that amazing office. That's what I'm working towards. And then you get in it and you're like, oh, that's not really what I want. You know, so I think it's okay to give yourself permission to actually step back and, you know, permission to say it's okay if I don't want the same thing that everybody else wants.
And it's like that in life though. Like I was catching up with a girlfriend once, and we've got a totally different lifestyle. She's got like 2 kids and, you know, a husband owns business. She's stay-at-home mom, loves it. And, you know, and she looks at my life and she's like, I want my career back. Like she's out there, you know, she's building a team. Like, you know, she's I just want to be like independent. And I look at her and I'm like, you've got like a husband, you've got 2 kids, you've got a house sorted. And I'm like, I kind of want what you've got. So
the grass is always greener.
That's what I mean. And I think it's the same in business. Like you could be a freelancer and want a big company, but you might get there and find out you were a lot less stressed and more profitable when you were a freelancer because you had 0 overhead. So I think before you go and do that and go down that path, just make sure it's what you want, not what everybody else is telling you to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I could not agree more. Literally could not agree more. Tell us then, so there's a lot of business owners, obviously, who'll be watching this video and obviously being in marketing and in digital, one of the, and also the Spark program is all around sales and marketing, right? So it's all around how to grow. And we kind of touched on the fact that digital isn't the silver bullet. And I think before we started recording, we were like, influencers aren't the silver bullet. So what advice would you have for a, small business, startup business who is kind of like, okay, I have a great product, I have a couple of customers, but it is really time for me to start taking growth a little bit more seriously. Would you have like a suggestion on what a good place to start is for a business?
Yeah, it's a challenging one because I think it's different for every business, unfortunately, in digital. I think what works for one won't necessarily work for the other.
Yeah.
Like if we talk about like e-commerce at the moment and selling a product online, and you can't put all your eggs in one basket anymore. Like, you could used to be able to say, Facebook ads is the cheapest way and most efficient way to drive online sales and find new people. And then algorithmic, platform changes come in, ISO 14 updates happen. And then now you can't attribute any sales to Facebook practically anymore. Like it's completely dropped off of it. So if you were using Facebook as your primary source of revenue, like you've been stung by, that right now. And in the same way, in 2023, Google's going to do the same update. So if you're just doing Google ads, then also, that's going to affect you. So I think the businesses that have grown sustainably over time, and I'll, not like shot up and shot back down, have been the ones that have done a bit of everything, right? Which is not what everybody wants to hear, but it's called like omni-channel marketing. So you kind of need to get to people with 7 to 10 touch points across multiple platforms. So it's probably starting with your content, because I think everything starts with content, making it engaging and good. And then from there, just deciding, 2 or 3 platforms you're going to focus on and to put that content out there on. And then, testing and trialing those before then, going into the other platforms. But depending on the product and how you've landed to where you are, I think your path will largely be very different to someone else's. And for instance, we get a lot of businesses that come to, they've got a really strong wholesale backdrop. So they sell wholesale to a lot of people, and they now want to get online and sell it themselves. They will have a quicker, return on investment than someone who hasn't got any wholesale backdrop, no retail store, and they just want to sell it online to a cold audience. So that's going to be a lot harder with a lot more investment than, someone who's already got some presence somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really hard to give, general advice on exactly where to start, because digital is so diverse and can get quite expensive, that you want to make sure you're doing the right thing for your product or brand. Like some lifestyle brands, we tell them to start with influencer marketing, because it quite often is the cheapest form to reach a lot of people and get good content. So if you've not got much budget and you're selling a lifestyle product online, I would say start with influencer marketing.
Yeah.
And, with micro influencers, and then grow from there. But if you're, a service-based product in the service industry and you want to get more clients, maybe you're going to start with Google ads, because that's where you're going to find your most high intent audience, and that's where your money is going to be better spent. So I think it's very different depending on what you're trying to sell. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the thought to make sure that if anything, you're focusing your time on your own content as well. You know, it's really interesting. You know, a lot of people would come to Scrunch and be like, I want a big influencer campaign. And we'd look at their website and we're like, no, you know, because it's like, what's the point in landing traffic on your website when your website is you know not going to convert, because then you'll blame the marketing strategy. So you know, I feel like people do also have to kind of look inside first and make sure they do have, you know, resources and blogs and social media and everything kind of like in order and kept up to date, so that they are the trusted authority on whatever it is that they do. So that way, when you do start investing in a marketing strategy, people are coming back to something that's really solid.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like, you just reminded me now that like most inquiries we get, they actually come to us too early. And, you know, and they've not even sorted out the price point. They've not done any market research. They don't even know what their unique selling proposition is. And I think if you haven't got those three things packed down, so who's going to buy this?
Yeah.
What is the price point and where does that sit in the market? And, you know, and how are you different from everyone else? If those three aren't like tight and solid, it's very difficult in the online space to get people to understand why they should buy from you. And so I think that coupled with your content needs to be like first and foremost, and then from there decide which avenues you want to target first.
Amazing. I love it. Well, you're awesome. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I know that, you know, the business owners that will be watching this video or watching the, you know, replays or whatever would have gotten so much value out of that. I love the idea of, I really love the idea of self-reflection in terms of, you know, not only what you want out of business, but also I love just how you ended there with, you know, what is your unique selling proposition? You know, how are you different? Like, I think the theme of today was like, take a bit of time to self-reflect, you know, and think about what you want and who you serve, and, you know, move forward, you know, to growing your business from there. I think that's awesome.
Don't rush anything. You know, it doesn't need to be like, you know, a race to the top just because it's online. I think some of the most successful brands we've worked for have just done things incrementally over time. You know, it's not been, you know, a massive push to reach X target in, you know, in 30 days. It's like, all right, how can we make this sustainable, you know, for everybody involved?
And that's a really good point in terms of, you know, content and marketing. Like, it has to be consistent. So you can't just go, oh my God, I'm just going to flood the market for a week and my life will be changed and I'll be a billionaire. You know, it's slow, it's consistent, and it's sustained growth that are the best companies.
For sure. On the same page there.
Amazing. All right. Well, you are fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us on the Spark channel. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll be hearing much more from you soon.
All right. Thanks so much, Danielle.
Thanks.